The storyline of Canvas Sky starts in 1875, right out in the West, right out in the thick of what's coming of our country at the time. You have this crew dropped into the thick of the action immediately when you come into it. But it took a lot of build-up to get there. As you find back through flashbacks and other arcs, you'll find out that each one of them have a pretty in-depth story that takes a time to get through. And that's one thing I like about the comic novella. It gives me the opportunity to get into these backstories and develop these emotions. And so that way you as a reader have a great emotional attachment to the character itself.
Without giving any spoilers away, what I find fascinating, are just really great about writing is actually delving into the characters' heads for the novella part. Where the comic part, it's all visual, you have to focus on the visuals and what looks good. The novella part becomes a delving into the character's mind and motivation, and to actually go from visual to character, it's just fun and just fascinating just to watch those two medias merge together.
Red is a character who has his own demons. Part of his storyline and everything like that is how he deals with these, and how he grows as a character through dealing with all these issues that he has left over from the Civil War and the time after, up until the start of Canvas Skies.
Red is a wounded soldier, alcoholic, tortured, a little bitter, just trying to put his life back together. Red's intelligent. He's smart when he's not waterlogged.
Belle's a fun character. She's tough, gritty. She's able to handle most situations. It took a lot of work through her life to get her to that particular situation. And if you ask my co-writer Matt on everything like this, he enjoys writing for her.
I gush about Belle because she's actually... all the characters are fun to write, but Belle is a little bit more fun to write for. And she's actually the character that I maybe identify with the most. How her life has kind of been, not to that degree that we're writing, but to that kind of how broken she is. Mainly because that's actually how I kind of used to be. It's more of the identifying character traits that I share with, I guess.
Cullen, he's a newer guy on the airship. He's kind of a greenhorn, and he's really in over his head. And despite getting actual training, he was thrown into the mix, right into the thick of it. And he has to learn on the fly. And I'm sure some of us had jobs in the past where like, yeah, good enough training, now go figure it out. He's kind of in one of those situations. I know I've been in those situations way too much. And it just gives a really cool dynamic of everything. You just kind of roll with it.
Colin is looking for something, or trying to find who he is. He's young, he's inexperienced, and he's kind of been sheltered most of his young adult life. He's been basically thrown into the deep end, when there's not that many people who will help him in the deep end. Blue is the heart of the ship. To be honest, he actually is the family man, the father, the antithesis to Red. He's calmer, more in control, and knows almost everything that happens on the ship.
Blue is a family man. Blue has a lot of qualities that I kind of imagine and I try to strive for as being a dad myself. It makes it very interesting. I like to identify a little bit with Blue. He's firm and strong, but yet has basically a strong compass of how he wants his children raised. And I hope I can strive to that too. So I kind of put a little bit of that into him.
Like Phantom? Yeah. I'm not talking about Phantom. He's an enigma.
Phantom's a mystery. Phantom is one I had some questions about, but I'm not giving anything out on him. He's a mystery. You'll enjoy his character development. His dynamic with the crew was very interesting. Especially when you get into volumes 2, 3, and 4, you really start seeing a little more snippets of him and his character development.
And I'm not talking about Phantom. He's an enigma. Well, Hannah. Actually, the fact that I know certain things as the writer about what's happening and where the characters are going, and every time I bring them up, I evilly laugh, and maybe that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. Hannah? Oh, I don't know, I keep laughing. Hannah is I would go with Hannah is energetic, happy, just the bubbly, the laughter of the crew, and also the one that doesn't take threats seriously. I think I'll give that answer for Hannah after my evil laughter. La Muerte. When I think define him, boom. And I think that is the best description of La Muerte. I love it. It's a Western with a guy with dynamite. That is actually fantastic.
Angela de la Muerte. His name is Raimundo Rodrigo Diaz. He's the Angel of Death, referred a lot to as La Muerte. He's a really interesting guy. He's kind of a mercenary. He goes over the top, and he has no qualms about going over the top. And he'd be one of those guys to say, I'm glad he's on our side. And it's just something to consider when you go through. Watch where he goes extreme. You can actually start picking through and finding reasons for it. Johnny Reb, who lost his legs during the war, he's still called Johnny Reb. Everyone calls him. There's a constant reminder of things that were. And despite his limited capabilities because of his disability, he has become a great mechanic. He rolls his little cart he rolls around on and everything else. He's a very beloved personality in Dock City in Kansas, where Central Dock Station is for the whole country.
Johnny Reb has been grievously wounded in the war, and he has no legs. And despite that, despite actually the repercussions of actually being handicapped in the post-Civil War era, he is not letting that actually completely ruin his life. He's actually a fighter and a scrapper, and it shows that he basically is a fighter and a scrapper and a cantankerous Southerner? We'll go with Southerner.
Sanke Weko, he's, you can say it was a Sonke. The one thing about doing an alternate history is that, there's other people who've had a rough share of certain things. But when you start throwing into how we changed history, their mix would be a lot worse. And when you kind of go with that, you start seeing things, what would happen with the history? What would have happened in the plains? Lily, she's fun to write for. Her dynamic and how she's in control is what I believe every person wants to be like. But for me, Lily's hard to do, because I think she's almost more like the antithesis of how I feel sometimes. And like I said, if I could run a business or anything like that, I would love to be able to have the control that Lily does and be able to do everything like that and be able to solve every problem that she is able to. And her story development will go on for quite a long time, and I'm sure that you'll love seeing how she grows. So, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for purchasing Canvas Skies Wings of Freedom. Thank you. Canvas Skies Wings of Freedom. It's airships in the Wild West. Little online presence going. You can read the first portion of Volume 1 for free at canvasskies.com, and if you like it, you can support us at our Indiegogo page.